You're listening to Opera Box Score.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Wherever you are, however you're listening, it is America's talk radio show about opera. It's Opera Box Score. I'm George Cedarquist, joined this week by Weston Williams and Ashley Hardgrave. All right, this week on the Season 7 finale of the OBS, it's another double play from Oliver's trip to Santa Fe. He goes inside the huddle with Ryan Speedo Green to talk about the bass baritone's debut at the festival on the heels of recovering from COVID. And Oliver also gets mezzo-soprano Isabel Leonard to take a few free throws in our brand new short-form segment. And then the OBS team hit the ups and downs of Season 7, plus 2-minute drill. Live performance is back, but audiences have been slow to return. So says the old gray lady, the New York Times. We're going to crunch the numbers on that. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast, Stitcher, Spotify. You click follow. And if you listen on Apple Podcasts, you just hit the plus sign. It's that easy. You don't want to miss what we are talking about. Another way to be part of the team is send us a voice memo, get your voice heard, or even just email us your hot takes. operaboxscore@gmail.com. You do that, and I am going to send you an OBS beer coaster and an OBS lapel pin. I might give you two just for sharing your own hot take.
Season finale energy going right now, you know?
It is. Weston, are you feeling it?
Oh, I am. And it's really finales all around. I just want to steal Oliver's sports talk real quick because this is, according to her, Serena Williams' last tennis match ever happening right now at the U.S. Open. That's why Oliver's not on the show, because he is glued to the TV and biting his fingernails and hoping it goes out on a high note. But that's just how it goes. Season finale, baby. Some good things have to come to an end.
It's possibly her last match ever. This is her last tournament, so she's starting her last tournament ever. If she loses, then it's her last match. If she wins, she keeps going.
Which is why Oliver's going to be glued to the TV every single match.
Ashley, you really, really hate Tom Brady.
I really do, but I just think everybody else should too. First of all, he's too handsome for his own good. No one should look that way.
Very true.
Second of all, he cheats. We know this. Third of all,
cheater. This
has come out recently because, there's all of this hullabaloo about the student loan forgiveness, thing. And there's a bunch of folks that are belly aching about it. But what I love is that Twitter is coming after all of the celebrities and the wealthy who had pandemic PPP loans that have been forgiven. And it turns out that Tom Brady had basically a $960,000 loan from the PPP program that was given to Brady's TB12 forgiven. Also, with part of the money, basically he got a donation to his foundation through this loan, and then he bought a boat. So 52% of the people that applied for that paycheck forgiveness didn't get it. Tom Brady got a boat, and then his loans were forgiven. So if you don't hate Tom Brady by now, I don't know what else to tell you.
At some point, we Michigan fans are going to forget that he led us to the national championship in 1997. That moment has not come yet. However, Michigan football right around the corner. College football begins on September 1st, so the day of the show release. Michigan opening up by hosting Colorado on September 3. I just love this time of year, the crispness of fall, college football. What's not to like? Weston, I swear to God, if I hear you say Roll Tide, I'm going to punch a microphone. Let's talk some opera.
Huddle up. Let's go inside the huddle.
In 2016, the biography of Ryan Speedo Green entitled Sing for Your Life was published. It details the American bass baritone's remarkable journey from his rough childhood to the world stages as an opera singer. A few years later, he was introduced to the world with his 60 Minutes profile. with Met and in HD performances soon to follow. Now, it's safe to say we are living in the high season of Speedo, with the bass baritone set to star in the next Terence Blanchard opera, Champion, in 2023. Oliver sat down with Speedo to talk about this next chapter of his life, as well as making his debut at Santa Fe Opera on the heels of recovering from COVID. But first, here is Speedo in Beethoven's Ninth, recorded last year with the Vienna Symphony.
So I'm in Santa Fe, and last night I saw The Barber of Seville, which so far has been the best thing I've seen this season. I know that I still have 2 more operas to go, but this Barber of Seville was actually hilarious. And yes, it's a funny opera, but there are lots of moments in Barbers where you're like, oh, okay, this probably was funny like 200 years ago, but it's not funny anymore. This show tries to cram in as many jokes as possible, and it really keeps you engaged. Even if you don't like the joke, at least you know that somebody's trying to go for a joke. So first of all, welcome, Ryan Speedo Green. Should we just call you Speedo?
Yes, call me Speedo. All my friends call me Speedo.
Okay. So we met when you made your recital debut at Ravinia with Adam Nielsen.
Mm-hmm.
And that was around the time when your book had come out. It was sort of like a recital tour, book tour at the same time. And, the 60 Minutes thing came out. We're going to talk about that. But for now, let's just talk a little bit about Santa Fe. So I was lucky to catch your actual house debut,
Yes.
which was delayed. Why was it delayed?
It was delayed because I had my second bout with COVID here in Santa Fe.
Man, that must really suck.
Yeah, no, I mean, the irony is like I would have had my debut in December for a gala, last December for Santa Fe, but I landed in Santa Fe, and after spending 4 months in New York, doing like 35 performances, and the second day I arrived in Santa Fe, I contracted COVID, and so I was on quarantine for 10 days. So I missed my debut, and then I was excited for coming here to do starting performances in the second run of Barber Seville here, and this amazing production. And I took my whole family this time, and we arrived, and in this 48 hours after I arrived, my son and my wife contracted COVID, and then my mother-in-law the day after, and then me 2 days later. So I ended up being in quarantine for like 15 days.
Oh man! Well, we have to put a pin in your wife and your son and your mother-in-law or your mother.
My mother-in-law, yeah, my mother-in-law,
okay.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought that up. We will talk about that in a moment, but let's just get back to Don Basilio. You are in this production. You have to remind me who the stage director is. I should have known this before.
No, I ended up working with the assistant stage manager and stage director because I missed the original mounting of the production, and so I didn't actually meet the original director. So I can, yeah.
Okay, but should we name this person?
Yes, we should.
Okay, let me look up the
because I worked with Gregory, who is his assistant stage manager.
Okay.
So I didn't actually meet the director face to face. I worked with his assistant.
Well, it's hilarious, and it's sort of a mixture of 18th century attire, and there's iPhones, and there's yoga mats, and it's just sort of all over the place genre or anachronistically in the era, but it totally works.
So it's Stephen Barlow.
Okay, Stephen Barlow. So congratulations, Stephen Barlow. And you said the assistant was Gregory.
Yeah. So Gregory's the one who worked with me for 1 day before my entire family contracted COVID.
Okay. And then shout out to Nicholas Newton, who did 2 performances in your stead.
Yes, he did. Yeah, and he was amazing. I got to meet him. He did the performances in the beginning, and then he ended up doing the 2 that I missed.
And shouldn't we, in this day and era, feel so fortunate that we have another Black bass baritone ready to go?
This is
true.
It
wasn't like, and I know this maybe not even part of the concept for this show, but I'm so glad that he was available, because he's also a great singer on top of being Black,
Yeah, and I think there's what I really, for me, what I really love looking at the Santa Fe season and the rosters, how many singers represented both Asian American, African American, Hispanic American, and just, first of all, the nationalities that are here. And I think that's exciting for me as a singer to come to a place like Santa Fe and still feel like this is a world, like the world is here. Not only the opera world, but the actual world is here.
Right. Well, so you're doing a comic role, and since your ascent into this new level of notoriety as a singer, you used to sing Osmin. Do you still sing Osmin?
So Osmin was my actually my last and final bass role. So I had a stint where I was like, man, I have a low D, I should show people.
Yeah.
but since then my voice has moved up, and I'm actually like a bass baritone, high bass baritone.
Okay, which means that you sing a lot of gloomy and angry kings.
Yes, kings, bad guys. I never get the girl, but maybe I'll be in the way of the tenor getting the girl. No, it's been actually pretty awesome. I started off with mostly comedy in the beginning of my career, and then as I discovered my voice and using my stage presence not only to make people laugh and smile, but also to instill fear and angst and the anti-heroic type of personalities that I presented, and also drunks. Apparently, I'm really good at representing drunks, even though I don't drink very much.
No, but I mean, like, you are a very formidable stage presence.
Yeah.
But in this Barber Seville, you're sort of fey and silly. And I don't know, it was really fun to see you be so, I don't know, loose and just easy on stage, and hilarious.
I will tell you, this cast is top notch, and I've had the pleasure of doing Barber in a bunch of different places, both in Europe and in America, and it's one of those shows that if you have the right cast, it's almost impossible not to make something funny happen. And I only got to rehearse with the cast once before opening night tonight, and even in our small rehearsal that I had, the energy, like, everybody fed off me. I had things to add to the character that the person who sang it before me didn't, and he had stuff that he put on himself. So it was almost a different performance, that I gave with the cast.
Yeah, I don't know how Nicholas did, because I didn't see it, but just like when you're wearing headphones, just like this little tilt you have in your neck just to show that you're listening is just so, just like little details like that are just so enjoyable.
No, I even remember when we were talking, me and the Bartolo, Kevin
Burdett, who is ridiculous in the show.
I sort of I first of all, I didn't know a human being could be a bass baritone / baritone could be as flexible as he is both physically and vocally on stage. The things he does on stage are something you would see in a vaudeville act. Yeah. And it's just like he's literally that comical in real life. Like he walked into a room and somehow you end up laughing.
Yeah, no, I was cracking up. And I was literally guffawing. And I think the people around me were like, okay, it was funny, but it wasn't that funny. No, it was a good time.
It was a really good time. And I think for me, with this kind of show, you could do it so much at some point, especially the people who sing these kind of roles sing them a lot, because it is a very specific kind of voice and character to sing these roles. It can become a bit monotonous, and it's everything to do with the cast and the direction to bring the most out of these characters and the people singing them. And I think it's a really a testament to the director and the production and the whole ensemble to bring this show together, that it went so well. Like, people told me this is I think it's the 6th or 7th performance of it, and even then, some of the people in the audience had seen it multiple times and they were still laughing. And that shows you how great of a production this is.
Well, we're here to talk about you, even though I could talk about this Barbara Streisand some more. Like I said, we met when your book had just come out and you were singing a recital with Adam Nielsen. And I think a lot of people saw this piece you did for 60 Minutes,
Yeah.
where you were sort of introduced to the world. And not a lot of opera singers get that opportunity to like have, their story, told. This was even before you were who you are now, So I feel like a lot of people feel like they know you, even though they haven't even heard you sing yet. They just know you because of your story that's out there. And now, but go on. I'll let you comment, then we'll talk about where you are now.
It's again, I know how great of an opportunity and how lucky I am to have something like that happen to me so early in my career. At the same time, it was a huge motivator for me because all the people who wrote to me telling me how much my story meant to them, especially educators, because as much as I'm an opera singer and my story is about how opera changed my life and affected me, my story is really about educators and how much educators from the very beginning a child enters elementary school, which literally is my story, to the time they enter music school and they want to learn this art form that is 400 plus years old. And they want to be a part of it and its grandioseness and its history and how it's special, how important educators are to transitioning children, teenagers, and adults into being not only opera stars and opera fans, but just to be able to feel like they're welcome into this art form. And I think it's been a huge motivator for me as a musician, as a man, as a person whose story has been told in such a way to not let, strive to live up to people's expectations and dreams of who I could become. And I feel so gratified that so many people have been following my career since that 60 Minutes interview and the book, and have been able to see me blossom from a young artist to now a full-fledged soloist performer.
You're the marquee star, and you have a production being mounted for you. I mean, I guess, I don't know, is Solomon Howard like on another cast of that?
No. So it's me, and it's only me. Okay. It's called Champion, and so the show's going to be me and Eric Owens, one of my mentors. Okay. So and he's playing the old version. So I'm playing young Emil, and Eric Owens is playing old Emil. And it's actually not only a story of a boxing story, but it's a story about accepting one's sexuality. Like this is a man who, I could talk to you hours about it, but the general basis is a man who a boxer who killed a man in the ring, and the world forgave him. But the moment that he was found out that he was gay, the world couldn't forgive him for being gay. So they forgave him for killing a man, but they couldn't forgive him for loving a man. And it's like an amazing story of self-acceptance, of forgiveness, and of the American dream. And I think I feel sort of sometimes looking at this character, as an ally and as a person who literally is living the epitome of the American dream, what America could be at its best, but also seeing America what it can be at its worst. And this is an amazing experience that I think everybody should see on the Met stage and in theaters if you're near a theater.
Yeah, well, it's going to be one of those HD broadcasts, so a lot of people will get to see it. And we touched upon the 60 Minutes piece you did and the story you tell about, Denise Graves and being in a governor's school, I guess it was, and going to the opera and saying, "Oh, there's a Black person there," and she's the best person on stage.
And the irony is Denise in the original mounting of Champion, Denise played my mother in the show. And so in this version, it's going to be LaTanya Moore, who's been both my sister on stage, my neighbor on stage, and now she's going to play my mother on stage. So I'm like, me and LaTanya have an amazing chemistry. So you have to come see me and her on stage together.
So is there a part 2 of the story of your relationship with Denise Graves now that we haven't heard, like the update?
Yeah. So one of the really cool moments of my career, something I'll never forget, after when the book was coming out, the book had come out already. That next season, I was performing I was getting the opportunity to sing my first aria on the Met stage. I was singing Colline in La Boheme in the famous Zeffirelli production. And I was singing, I think it was in November, December, or something like this. And the book had done its rounds and had become pretty popular. And so at that time, the Government School for the Arts, the high school that I went to in Virginia, took a special field trip with all 30-something kids from the classic voice program up to New York to see me make my basically bigger than a Copper Mario role debut at the Met, singing the Code aria. And so they were meeting me in the green room where I met Denise for my first opera. And a lot of these kids, this is their first ever opera. And to see, not only a face of color from their hometown, but see a person from their school who literally graduated from their school on the Met stage. And so I'm going backstage to meet my first group of government school kids, in the green room. And I walk in, and Lord behold, there's Denise Graves standing amongst them. I had no idea that she was going to be there. And apparently someone told her that there was this book that had come out where the singer was talking about how she inspired him to become an opera singer. And so she's like, I have to come up and see this kid. And so she came up to see my big role debut at the Met. And she hugged me and kissed me. I was in tears. I couldn't believe. I was like, there are pictures. Somehow the Met made this happen. And it was, in the next season, I got to actually sing with her on stage. She sang Mariah and Porgy and Bess, and I sang Jake. So I actually got to sing with her on stage, and actually to not only, more than 15 years ago, have her be the catalyst of my love for opera, then have her see me in one of my biggest moments of my career, then a year later be able to sing with her on the Met stage in an opera. It was in one of the biggest, most important production at the Met, that Porgy and Bess. It's honestly, pinch me.
Yeah. Well, she set a high standard for stage presence and physicality in her generation.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're being asked to do this boxing role. Do you have are you drinking a lot of green shakes?
I will tell you, speaking of family and COVID, COVID was, hit everybody really hard, financially, mentally, physically. And when COVID happened, I lost a lot of work, like most singers. And I didn't escape that. And, I spent about 6-7 months at home. And I remember the first thing that hit me was kind of depression, the fact that my wife was 6 months pregnant with our second child, she had to go on forced maternity leave because of COVID and the fears that pregnant women could be, could face extreme harm. And so basically I have no job, at home with my young child and my coming child. I had to pick myself up, and, she was my rock. And she told me if I can't be on stage singing, you got to work on your voice, and you got to work on your body, and just start walking, take long walks. And so I ended up, first I was walking 4,000 steps and huffing and puffing and walking and coming home. And the next thing I know, after 2 or 3 weeks of doing it, I'm walking 10,000 steps. I was like, man, it kind of feels good. And it feels like I'm airing out my, letting go of my pain and my sadness, and kind of taking it out on these steps. And next thing I know, I'm walking 20,000 steps, 25,000 steps. And I'm dropping weight just because I'm just being more active, and I felt more energetic to work on my voice, find new avenues to perform. I started, doing a lot of stuff on Zoom like other singers were doing, and getting involved with my community. And I think in Austria, where I live at the moment, and it was my mind, my body, my voice, everything changed that summer. And I could have sat and sort of in my depression and let that define me, but I didn't. And I'm happy that I had a support system, my amazing wife and my kids. And it was an awesome realization of, I'm more than just my voice, and it was awesome.
Well, since you bring it up, and we promised to talk about it, you are somebody, because I'm your friends on social media, and I just see how often you are grateful for family, and you have young children, and your career is exploding right now. How do you do it? What is your support system? Who is helping you and your wife? How does it inform what jobs you take? Just let's talk about it, so that people who might follow in your footsteps might have a strategy.
Yeah, I think it's what's so important in this field is to realize no matter how amazing of a singer or a person you are, it takes more than you to create something. It takes a village, and my story is a story of a village, and family is not necessarily your blood. it's more than that. And for me, the people that I hold dearest and closest to me are not necessarily blood related to me. From my fourth grade elementary school teacher, Mrs. Hughes, to the head of the Government School for the Arts when I was there, who I call my pops. He's the closest thing I had to a father. His name is Leon Hughes, the husband of Betty Hughes, my fourth grade elementary school teacher. These are two of my adopted parents, and they've been with me since I was 8 years old. Even now at 36, going on 37, they still call me every week to make sure that I'm like eating right, and I'm getting some sleep, and I'm behaving and doing my homework. They still check on me. And I've been lucky enough, even blessed enough, that throughout my life I've run into people who become my family. From Robert Brown, my first voice teacher, who taught me how to sing and taught me the love of opera and the essentials, first person to tell me that I would ever sing at the Met. And he never got to see me sing at the Met. But, to this day, every success I have on stage, I look up and I know that he was a part of it. And, even now in my family, I think it's important that every singer has an inner circle, and an inner circle can be different with everybody. My inner circle is consisting of educators and people whose word means more to me than any review or any coach, because there are people who have to know you, not only at your voice, but you as a person. And of course you hope your manager or your is part of that inner circle, because they should be one of the closest people you talk to, and my manager is one of them. And it's important that you find people in your life that are not just music. And my wife, who had never, her name is Irene, or Irena if you're German, who had never seen an opera in her life when I met her. She had nothing to do with my field, and it was actually a saving grace that she didn't, because there's only enough room for one diva in my relationship, and that's me. and she's the most down to earth, grounding human being on the planet. And when I come home, I'm not Ryan Speedo Green, the opera singer. I'm Ryan Speedo Green, the dad. And she hands me the baby and says, "Change the diaper," and I get to work. And you don't know how grounding that is as a musician, to come home to that.
Well, I want to get into some of the nitty gritty, because and you don't have to name names, but I just want you to maybe describe some experiences where a job or a company has been really great in understanding the needs of a young parent, or on the contrary, on the other hand, like a company or a gig that was like, wow, I can't ever do that gig again because they were just not accommodating at all. That was like a mess and a logistical nightmare,
Yeah, I will tell you, things in Europe are different than things in America. As much as, I live in Europe. I live in Vienna, Austria. I sing with the Wiener Staatsoper for 5 seasons, sing 42 roles there, hundreds of performances. And it was an amazing experience. And it literally changed the trajectory of my career, as much as many things did in the past. But at the same time, I realized as I'm living in Europe, how amazing the American operatic system is. There's a comfort coming to the US, knowing that they'll accommodate for my family. Like I just recently did a production of my first big production of Carmen with WNO, Washington National Opera, at the Kennedy Center, and I can't tell you how many times I went there with my wife and my 2 kids and my mother-in-law, and they're kind of like we're traveling a group, and they were so accommodating to certain things that had to happen at home. Like if one of my kids was sick, or, if I needed to come a little later or earlier, or if I need to change rehearsal because, I need to make sure that my kids get this appointment because these appointments can only happen in America at this certain time, they were so accommodating. And, I'm not used to that. In Europe, you show up or you don't show up. And even now I'm here in Santa Fe, performing here in one of the most beautiful summer festivals of all time. It's so stunning. And the fact that they provide housing for families, the fact that beautiful housing, and the fact that I get to perform, for some people performing for 2.5 months, 3 months, and you get to literally have your kids and your family. There's nothing more rewarding than coming home from work and being able to hug and kiss your family, you know,
and to eat food from a kitchen and not from a restaurant.
Yes. Well, if your family can cook, I don't know. I mean, I'm lucky. My wife can cook, but and I can cook too. But some families, I mean, they have to go out every night. I'm not. So,
do you think it might have anything to do with Francesca Zambella? I don't know her, but the fact that she's in leadership at Washington, and like maybe there's just like it's like I talk about this all the time. Like maybe we need more women in the administrations leading these companies who understand that, like, you know, if you want to have the really good singers, they have families, because, you know, they understand what's important, what's in life, you know, and you get that round, complete artist because of their families. And
I will tell you, like, the stability is different with everyone. I know some singers who do not need a partner to feel complete, and they have these like ridiculous, amazing careers with living out of their suitcase, basically, and it's absolutely possible. Every singer is different. Me, I'm the kind of person, like, I thought when I married my wife, you know, like, oh man, she's gonna need me, and I'm gonna like, you know, I can't go too far because she'll miss me too much, because she's not I'm not an opera singer, you know, she doesn't understand this lifestyle. And the moment I started traveling, I realized that I'm the one missing her. Like, she's perfectly fine. She's like, oh, you're coming back in a month? Okay, I'll see you in a month. And I'm like, baby, no, I miss you so much. It's been like 6 hours, and like I married the perfect woman for me. And I think for me, that's what I needed: someone strong and stable, and she's literally a pillar of protection for me from the world. And it's the irony is, like, you know, I'm this 270-pound, 6'4" black guy who's like being protected by this, you know, much smaller, petite woman. So I'm literally a softie, and that I'm glad I have her. And the thing is, like, you know, Francesca, she has a wife and a kid, and she understands. She's a parent, and, you know, as much as opera is an elitist, it is an elitist art form that has hundreds of years behind it. Hundreds of years of history, of pain, blood, sweat, and tears. You know, it is also a field of emotions. Like, we put our emotions on that stage. We give pieces of ourselves to the audience. If we're doing our job right, we're giving pieces of ourselves every night, whether it be in a comedy or in a drama. And when you do that, when you put yourself out like that, you need to have something, or people supporting you, not only on the stage but off the stage, you know. And I think that's why it's important as administrators here, you know, David Lomelli with his wife and kids, you know, the Henry Pickett, like, you know, like all the people involved here at Santa Fe, Francesca Zambella, you know, the people at the Met, you know, it's so important to have people on your staff and your administration who understand family and stability.
Well, we know that we can hear you in Champion next spring.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else that we can look forward to before Champion? I know
yes.
You got to finish up this Basilio run.
Yeah, so I'm finishing up the Basilio run, and then after that, I'm heading to Europe for I'm closing the BBC Proms, doing the B9, and then I'm going to Peoria, Illinois, to do a B9 there. And then I'm going to be spending about 2.5 months at WNO, performing in a new production of Electra as a rest, and then also simultaneously singing Ferrando and Il Trovatore. So if you come there to see me in one of those shows at Washington National Opera, you can just stay an extra night and see me in the next one next night.
Will this be your first arrest?
This will be my first arrest. Yes, I love it. And then after that, I'll be making my role debut singing Curvanal and Tristan with L.A. Phil and Dudamel, and then going to the Bastille in Paris to do a production of Tristan as Curvanal again, with Dudamel conducting. And after that, I will be doing the Mussorgsky Songs and Dances of Death with the Met Orchestra at Carnegie Hall. And after that, that same month, I'll be doing a commission piece with the New York Phil for Black History Month. And then after that will be my first lead role, first title role of my career, will be at the Metropolitan Opera singing Young Emile in Champion.
This commission with the New York Phil, who's the composer?
So the composer, you ask me all these questions. It's still in the works. It's still in the works.
Okay.
But Courtney Bryan is the composer.
Okay.
and the libretto. Tazo Thompson is going to be doing the libretto.
Oh wow! Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
And it's basically going to be a piece. I'm going to be going to Philly to be, because I think she's a resident composer with the Philadelphia Symphony. Is it Philadelphia Symphony? Yes.
Philadelphia Orchestra.
Philadelphia Orchestra. I apologize. Yeah, Philadelphia. She's a resident composer, so I'm going to be going up to there in November to be working with her, like just vocally and looking at some text. But she's going to the thematic. It's basically centerpiecing. It's a centerpiece for the thematic focus of the season, where they're exploring the notion of liberation and social justice. So I'm not sure exactly what libretto, what Tasso is going to use as inspiration, like what text he's going to be using, but it's going to be performed with William Grant Still's Symphony No. 2, and Adolphus Hellstork's Done Made My Vow. So it's 2 orchestral pieces, and I'll be the vocal piece in that program.
So we didn't talk about it, and maybe this is not a rich topic for you, but we're coming out of the pandemic, and there was this social uprising in the meantime, and the Black Opera Alliance sort of gained steam, and just I feel like all the arts organizations are just taking a look at themselves and maybe being more intentional, even if it's performative, they're being more intentional. And I felt like during this time, I didn't hear from you. I'm not saying that you weren't out there saying stuff, but I feel like there were some artists that were very, very vocal. Is it because you're working in Austria and you've got your work and you've got your family, you don't need to contribute to that conversation? Or is that private for you? Or are you just so grateful because of your path to where you are now that you don't want to, stir the pot? I don't know.
I think this is a very, 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 very touchy subject. And I think everybody's voice is heard differently. And maybe some people are vocal on social media, but they that voice, that social media is great to see, but the voices that maybe don't happen on social media that happen to the people that can actually make changes is maybe equally as important. And I think for me, social, first of all, anybody who knows me knows how much inclusion and diversity is important to me. And when it doesn't happen, when I'm around and when I see that it's in being tested or being not being implemented, I say something. And any opera company or administrator that knows me personally knows how I always bring that up. And so for me, I don't need to, my social media is for my personal use and the purpose of me expressing when I want to say something happy, and when I say something that's upsetting or something that displeases me, you'll know as well. Mm-hmm. But for me, my operatic voice is done in person. I don't need to put it on social media for people to hear me. Anybody who knows me and talks to me and has conversations with me, they hear how I feel about things. So good. if you have questions about me personally, about how I feel about certain subject matters, you ask me now, I'll tell you how I feel about them.
No, I don't need to. I just wanted to put that out there because I do think that there are people out there who are so angry about everything, and they're always calling out people, and there's this purity test. And I can name an example. I won't, of somebody who says, "Oh, well, that person has their job, so they don't need to, to stir the pot, so they're fine, and they're working within the patriarchal system, they figured it out. So why would they call attention to injustices?" But
I think it's important for every art. I think maybe I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think it's very important for every artist to express themselves the way they want to express themselves, but also know that social media, once you put it out there, it's there forever. Even if you take it off, someone's probably taking a screenshot. So if you have something, I would be wary of making things personal and being and also making generalizations, because you never know what's happening behind the scenes. And for instance, I will say, for an example, I posted something about Terrence Blanchard and how amazing, how excited I was to be a part of his second production at the Met, which is a big freaking deal for an African-American composer, or even an American composer, to have an opera of theirs done the next year after their premiere, which, I mean, Nico Muhly didn't have that, it's a huge deal. And not only that he's African-American, but he's American. This is an American composer. Before he's even African-American, he's American. And that to me matters. And so I posted this, and I had someone write a comment about how, that he was Uncle Tom type of thing. And I was like, do you first of all, as this person who wrote this, I had to write them, and I was like, do you actually know that there's another African-American composer having their opera perform next season? You ever heard of this opera called Malcolm X? Mm-hmm. That's not composed by Terrence Blanchard. That's also being performed at the Met next season. And so I had, before you go out there and put yourself on the chopping block, because again, as much as the internet is and social media is supportive, it'll also tear you down in the moment with people turning you in a second. And it's important that, before you put yourself out there to be embarrassed or have your career in jeopardy, make sure you're rightfully informed and educated on the subject matter you're about to put out there.
Yeah. No, there are people who just want to burn it all down.
And it's not the right way.
I've had those moments too, trust me. But I also love it so much that I know that the work from the inside is very important.
Yeah, and I've been educated in so many ways on so many different experiences of people in the business through social media, things I would have never known, the gay experience, the bi experience, the Asian experience, the white experience. I don't know these things. Only experiences I know are myself and my, my people's, the only experiences that I know, because that's the experiences that I'm living. And so I never pretend to understand someone else's experiences. And so I love the fact that social media allows me basically a window into the lives and experiences of others. And I accept it and I let it soak in before I make a judgment. And I think that's also important. Like, as much as we like to show people how we feel, it's also important to absorb other people's experiences. And I think that's something that maybe can be forgotten, that needs to be also done. And I think as a musician, opera is the most open-minded art form. It's been the most accepting art form secretly for so long, where many composers and singers got to be their actual selves in the operatic world, behind doors and on stage. But now it is with the world being the way it is now, where people allowed to be themselves everywhere. And I think we have to remember how opera should be held sacred and cherished for what it was for so many people for so long.
Well, I would love to leave this conversation with just recalling the young man you used to be when you were in high school and when you were in governor's school. And can you name maybe an experience or the type of experience that is so different than what you thought your life was going to be? I mean, I am just thinking about like singing Belshazzar's Feast or like singing Gurnaval. These are things that are just so, would your mind be able even to comprehend if that was going to be something you could do?
I will tell you if you talk to 14-year-old Ryan Speedo Green, when after I saw my first opera at the Met, my first opera literally was at the Met, and I'm leaving there after seeing Denise Grace perform the title role of Carmen on the Met stage, thinking like, this is the greatest experience I've ever had, outside of like watching your first Disney movie or that kind of like experience. And I literally thought this was like the Disney World of opera, of performance. And I left the Met and I told my voice teacher, Robert Brown, I know what I want to do with my life. I want to sing at the Met. And I don't want to sing opera. I want to sing at the Metropolitan Opera, because this to me was what opera was as a 14 or 15-year-old pursuing this art form. And in my mind, I thought, if someday I could graduate college, graduate grad school, do a young artist program, and then be able to audition for the Met Chorus and sing on that stage and just be a part of a show on the Met, my life would be complete. I would have made it. And if the fact that, literally, I don't know how many years is that? 9 years later, I'm making my debut singing on the Met stage by myself in the Met competition with the Met Orchestra, singing 2 arias at 24 years old. I didn't think there was any more I could do. I thought that was the pinnacle, and to have my story be told, to have traveled the world, sung at some of the greatest opera houses in the world, met some of the stars that I've idolized throughout my childhood and my adulthood, and be able to perform with them on these stages. I'm just thankful every day that I get to wake up and I get to be a part of this history and this grandeur and this field, which has created me as a man and created me as a father and created me as a musician. I'm so blessed and I'm so thankful. And thank you for having me.
Il contemplera, j'ai tranche à ses pieds les gens du mai, c'est où le fait à mai, dans le sport et dans le frotte. Ouvrez leur bon métal, ouvrez leur bon métal. Et Satan conduit le vol, et Satan conduit le vol, conduit le vol.
That was Ryan Speedo Green singing Mephistopheles' Golden Calf aria for Austin Opera last spring. Thanks again to the PR team at Santa Fe Opera for giving us access to Speedo.
Free throw.
And speaking of Santa Fe, we have one more interview to share from this year's festival. Oliver interviewed Isabel Leonard for his other job, but got her permission to share these outtakes from their chat. Even though Isabel was starring in her second ever production of Carmen at Santa Fe, Oliver wanted to talk about a memorable production which came earlier in her career, Klaus Gutz's take on Così from the Salzburg Festival. We will link to the video in the show notes. Let's hear a bit of that performance from 2009.
You did this production of Così where you had to stand, I don't know, 20 feet above the stage on, I don't know how much of a platform you had. If it was like 2 feet of, I was terrified. When I was watching, I was like, oh my God, I'm so nervous for you right now.
Yeah, I don't think I could do that again now. I feel like I've developed a little bit of vertigo as I've gotten older. So, but at the time, it was as scary as it looked.
Yeah. What was the fail safe for you? Was there anything?
No.
Was there a soft ground?
No, there was no fail safe. The only thing I did was I knew like I'm kind of an ex-dancer in the sense that like I studied dance for a really long time and I have a sense of my body and everything. So, I won't put myself into situations that I don't feel like I can control. So in the motion, because, things look pretty flat, especially that stage was so white and everything, and the videos are going to look quite flat. Like I never threw my body forward. Like, so the moment where it looks like I'm going forward, like I actually threw my body backwards, but I brought my arms forward. So it gave an impression, a little bit more of an impression. And I had asked them actually, because I would stand on this thing, and I asked them to put double-sided sticky tape, like a thick thing of sticky tape right on the edge of it, so that I could get my toes up there so that I could at least have like some traction. So yeah, it was a pretty crazy thing.
You were like 25 or something like that when you did that.
Yeah, I mean, it was my first Dorabella. Yeah. And I was like, what, 26 or 27 or something. Yeah, I was,
You were saying yes to things.
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing about all of that is that I most likely offered it. Knowing me, I most likely offered it. So, yeah.
I mean, early in your career, when everybody was talking about this new mezzo, like you were talking a lot about fitness, and I don't know if that is like still your brand or if that's like something that a publicist wants you to do. Or I know that you're very fit, but I don't know if that's something that like you don't want people to talk about that anymore. It's like
it's not so much like that I don't want people to talk about it anymore. It's just that I also know that there's like for me, like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like, I just like watching people take advantage of things when they're just in fashion, It's for me, it's like, it has to just be the the honest thing that's happening in the moment. Right. And that particular time, like I was extremely active, of course, physically in the beginning of my career because I was not a mom yet, and I had always come from dance. And so it was always a big part of my stage craft and presence. And then after my son was born, I knew I had to get back to a certain level of fitness because it was the level of fitness that I had learned to sing from. So if my body was in a different place, I was going to be dealing with a completely different instrument, essentially. And even now, like my body is still not the same as it was, obviously, when I was like 28 pre my son. But as far as strength goes and the things that I know that I need for singing, those are always things that I'm aware of, and active, being active and being flexible physically and being able to do certain things, like I always say, like, I'll program ketobinos in until I really can't do them anymore, like until my knees really give out, because it's sort of like if I say, oh, I've got a ketobino coming up in 6 months, I'm like, oh, I gotta go to the gym, gotta like practice getting up and down from the floor without being like, but you feel the passage of time, like the ketobino I did at the Met when we opened that new production in 2014, right? I created that one with Richard Eyre because he directed. That's the one you were talking about.
Yeah, the Downton Abbey.
Yeah, exactly. And I had done it so many times by then that I really had a concept of like who he was and what I could and couldn't do. And Richard, I love Richard because he's such a positive enabler for acting. And so all of the staging essentially was like me being like, hey, can I run up that ladder? And then can I slide down it? And then like hide under the bed? And like, can we, he was like, just do it. Just do whatever. And we'll just tell you. Yeah. So all of that stuff was me running around and like all of it. And then.
But your son was born by then, right?
Oh yeah. He was 4 at that point.
Okay.
Yeah. So there was also a different level. Like I was more, I was, especially when he was 4, because it was like running around a toddler.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. I mean, first of all, I just want to tell you that I'm as gay as the day is long. So I can say this hopefully, and you'll feel safe. But I was very confused watching you. I had feelings because like I've always thought you were a beautiful woman, but like to see you as such a handsome boy, I was like, this is very confusing for me.
Funny. I love that. But that's really fun though, actually, because it's like, what's happening,
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, as far as like the passage of time goes, so when I did that one again recently, and I had done it before or in between 14 and now, although I can't remember. When I went to do it again now and I stepped in at the last minute in January, February, or whenever that was, of course I kind of remembered all of the staging and all of the things, right? But I remember like going, wow, I don't remember this space under the bed being so small, or like, geez, the run around the stage was really far, like some of the things I was like, yeah, okay. I feel old. My knees are hurting. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time, but you are just as incredible as I thought you would be. You're so like on so many levels, such an admirable artist. And I want to just tell you, thank you for your career and what you've been doing for opera. You are an incredible ambassador for what I love, and when people go see opera and they see you, it's like, oh, how come everybody can't be like her,
Oh, that's very nice of you.
Yeah. Your Zerlina in Chicago, I forget when it was.
Oh my God. Yeah. I was a baby.
That was, for me, it's like, holy shit. We have somebody who actually like can be a Zerlina convincingly.
Oh, I know. Well, I could tell you, she and Dorabella took a lot of thought process.
Yeah.
Because I really did not like them at first. I was very much like, who are these people? Because there is that level, they come across sometimes as floozies, depending on how you play them. And so after a while I said, you know what, forget it. They're not floozies. And I can't play them that way because I have to feel as them that the decisions they're making are correct decisions. Right. So I was able to find like the route, but it took me a while to kind of like mentally get through with each of them, like the why they do what they do.
So did you rationalize that Zerlina is trying to ascend class-wise rather than?
It wasn't so much that she was trying to ascend class-wise, is that she was, because I think the reason those characters are hard is also because it's very hard as a modern day female to understand the constraints, the stresses, and the the inflexibility of the time that those women were living in, the fact that they did not have really choices. Like the choices that she had was to marry Mazzetto or go to a convent.
Yeah.
Right. So all of a sudden she has this third choice, which was could, if it were a real choice, would put her in a position to probably take care of her family. You know, who knows? We don't know the rest of the story. So you just build things in to make decisions make sense to yourself. So for me, it was like she was lost in this possibility. And I think that if we really think about people and humans, very few people would just immediately discard something like that if it came their way, whether it was a career opportunity, a life.
Yeah, you have to investigate it, you know?
People investigate it. They just do. It's human nature, I think, to want to be in a better, safer position, right? And I think if you think of it that way, and you think of her as a woman at that time, being in a safer position, you know, money and stuff like that would have been a safer position for her, right?
Yeah.
So that's what it was. But I think that's why when she is apologizing to him and all of these things, she's very genuine. I think she's very genuine about it. Like, she's also a flirt, but that doesn't make her a bad person, right? And I think she also comes to the realization, of course, she loves Mazzetto. I mean, there's no question, you know, and that ends up being for her, you know. And it's sort of the same with Dorabella in a way, where somebody else comes into the picture. And if you really take it for face value, and if she really takes for face value that those guys have gone off to war, and what are the odds that they're coming back? I mean, really, for them, the odds are really low.
Yeah.
So maybe her mourning period is a lot faster than Fiordalici's.
Yeah.
And then she's trying to move on, you know, you never know. So I think that's how I go through it. Because also playing disingenuous, unless the character is truly, that's the character. I don't know, it doesn't come across very nice. I don't think it's not as interesting.
So we've all seen Zerlina stagings where it's just about sex, you know, and to me, it's like, oh, come on, there's more to the character than this, you know? She's not just like a horny bluesy. You know? No. Also, again, I think that it just makes it sort of boring. Yeah.
Because, you know, and also, like, why would he pursue her? You know, why would Don Giovanni pursue? I mean, he pursues all the women, right? But I would like to also suspect, to make his character more interesting, he enjoys the chase, right? He enjoys the challenge, clearly. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone for Elvira, you know. He enjoys the challenge. So I think if Zerlina were just simply like, you know, rolled over, like, that's not very exciting.
Isabel Leonard from the Santa Fe Opera Festival in between performances in the title role of Carmen. What a get for the OBS Season 7 finale. Thanks again to Emily Doyle Moore and Eliana O'Brien at Santa Fe Opera for making that possible.
And thanks to Oliver for making the trip out to Santa Fe, having a great time, but really capturing some incredible interviews. That man is worth every penny that we pay him. This is the sort of stuff you don't want to miss on the OBS. That's why you subscribe. Stitcher, Spotify, you click follow, Apple Podcasts. Again, you just hit the plus sign. It's true. Season 7 comes to an end. Season 8 just around the corner, kicks off with the new academic year. In September, there's been some ups, there's been some downs, there's been some A-list guests for this finale, and certainly over the last few months and weeks. I want to turn to the team. I'm going to start with Ashley, with you. Give us your high point and your low point for season 7 of the OBS.
You know, for my high point, every so often you get a really talented athlete that has all sorts of amazing things to offer, but doesn't quite fit in with the team that they have been traded to. They're not working with the coaching staff. They're not working with the other players. There's just something that's not gelling. And so for us, my high point is us not making a deal with Dallas Opera by the trade deadline. Because here's my point, is that this athlete, one of the things that we do really well is we try to help educate our listeners and our audience. And we do a lot of that with audio clips. We were stifled. We couldn't do as much of that. It was great to be a part of the TDO team. And, you know, it was a really great experience. But some of the things that made us, we weren't able to do. So it's like taking away a signature play from a really great defensive line and expecting them to do other things and hoping that it works out. And so for us, like you've got to have an athlete that's got support from its staff. It's got a good coach. Sometimes those relationships don't work out and those people need to get traded. So we got traded, and I think we're going to be back to our roots and all the better for it.
So for what some people would be a low became your high. So is what some would consider a high going to be your low?
Depends on who you're a fan of in opera. My low is every false start we had to deal with Anna Netrebko this season. She, when it's like, when we think the progress, like I think of the progress of opera and like it's moving forward as like a track meet or a swim meet. And like everybody's on the blocks. We're ready. We're waiting for everybody to go charging forward. And then that one person goes rogue and like jumps into the pool or falls off the block. And it's like, ugh, okay, everybody back. We got to try this again. Anna was our false start. She kept showing up and like mitigating the progress that we've been trying to make in this art form. So I'm tired of hearing about her. She's my low.
Weston Williams, give us a high and a low from season 7.
Well, I'll start with a low, too, and it's going to tie in with Ashley's because it is related to the end of our collaboration with the Dallas Opera Network. But I will say that my low specifically, and just to give everyone sort of a peek behind the curtain here, while we were with the Dallas Opera Network, my job was to basically record on a Monday night, go on, and then by Tuesday, have an audio version of the show and a video version of the show ready to go in the can to be reviewed and then sent out there. So our final episode with the Dallas Opera Network was, of course, the famous basketball game, which unfortunately, if you listen to the podcast, you have no idea about because the audio would have been unusable, just garbage, just us running around. You would have heard like various sort of sounds of balls being thrown over garages and
a little bit of panting
and Oliver being very smug about getting like the 2 shots that he got in, and then it would have just been a real mess auditorially speaking. So that was my low. That was the one show, the last one, that I couldn't get an audio and visual for. So I really regret that. But my high, speaking of things that are unusual, Oliver is usually the person who gets us our great interviews, but occasionally George will step in with somebody, or Ashley or Matt, because all of you guys have such great connections in the industry. You're all professionals. I am basically, my whole qualification for being on this panel is the fact that I am really good at faking being a music major, which I was not in college. So as a result, I don't have these kinds of connections, but I was on a call with an old college friend of mine who happened to mention that he knew Matthew O'Coin. And I was like, now is my chance. I can contribute something to the show, finally, at long last. And we went and we hounded his team, and I got this connection through, and we had a great interview. You should check it out in our archives. A great interview with Matthew O'Coin talking about the deep things about his compositional process and what art means to him, what opera means. It's a great conversation. And even though I didn't actually make it on that conversation, Oliver did a great job following through with my lead.
So George, highs and lows, what you got for us?
Well, I'm gonna start high as well. I mean, obviously, England making it to the final of Euro 2020, beating Germany 2-0 to get there, and then losing just by the... Oh, wait, sorry. Wait, opera? Oh, sorry.
Yes,
okay, sorry.
This show. You're on the opera show right now.
Yeah, I got my wires crossed there. I did enjoy the Euro 2020 segment. I love the brackets. I love the bracket segments.
George
so
loves
much.
the bracket.
I love the Aida. We did the brackets, a multi-show opera bracket in March. We did a March Madness thing that was for the podcast, in December. We did the Aida Fantasy Football League, which I loved as well. But to go back to that Euro 2020 bracket we did, Tony Barrese being the judge, it was episode 300.
Yeah.
Will Liverman went inside the huddle with us. I mean, that was just, everybody got gold. There was no gold,
That's a
silver,
heck of
bronze on that show.
Yeah.
I'm going to transition. I have a high, I have a middle, and a low.
Oh.
In transitions, I am saddened that we don't give out the red cards anymore in the red card segment. We had to give a red card to the red card segment. Now, the good thing is, right, is that like everyone's open and we don't have to punish people for staying open when clearly they shouldn't be. The bad thing is that we don't get to punish people.
Yeah.
That was really
That's
enjoyable
truly
to
tragic.
You masochist.
The absolute low for me, Weston already mentioned the TDO finale when we played the basketball game. Some losses, smart. Some losses really hurt. Michigan losing to Ohio State really hurts. Yale losing to Harvard really hurts. Me losing to Oliver in that basketball game.
It's rough.
It's like Bama losing the Iron Bowl. Like you can't come back from that.
It's like that's the kind of game you circle on the schedule, and when you lose it, it really, really hurts. So one of these days, I'm gonna get a rematch. Such a great season. I'm looking over my notes again. Listen to this. This time, September of last year, Lucas and Arena Meacham, Charles Castronovo, Kyle Kettleson, Ann Toomey, Daniela Candelari, Jake Heggie. Yes, that one actually happened. Joyce L. Curry, O'Coin, of course, we talked about, and then the season 7 finale. I feel like I'm doing a sort of, like not-for-profit radio show thing. I'm like listing off all the prizes that you get when you donate money, but it has been truly a bumper year. And if that means anything, it means you want to stick around for season 8. And right now, you want to stick around for the 2-minute drill.
This just in, the 2-minute drill.
All right, listen up. Here's everything you need to know about what happened in Operaland this week.
The winners of the 2022 Opus Classique Awards have been announced. This year, the female singer of the year went to Léa Desandre for her album Amazone, while the male singer of the year went to Jonas Kaufmann for his List Freudvoll und Leidvoll album. The conductor of the year is Vladimir Jurovsky for Strauss's Eine Alpensymphonie, while the young talent of the year went to Aeneas Hum for Embrace and Penny Pate for his eponymous album.
The Metropolitan Opera has announced a new COVID-19 policy. The company says that audience members will no longer be required to show proof of vaccination to attend a performance or event. However, while inside the Opera House, everyone is required to wear a properly fitting mask.
The Sound of Identity is a film set to be released in the UK following its US debut. The documentary about friend of the show, Lucia Lucas, follows the transgender opera singer and her history-making performance in the lead role of Mozart's Don Giovanni.
After the San Antonio Symphony closed its doors in June, the musicians of the orchestra have announced the formation of the San Antonio Philharmonic. In a statement, the new organization said, quote, "When the San Antonio Symphony Management ceased operations, the musicians, some of whom had won their seats in the 70s and 80s, were determined to preserve world-class music in San Antonio. With their formation of the San Antonio Philharmonic, we all have an historic opportunity to reinvent what an orchestra in the 21st century can be."
The largest political donation in U.S. history has operatic ties. According to the New York Times, secretive business tycoon Barry Side donated 100% of the shares of his electronics manufacturing company to the conservative political action committee Marble Trust. Marble Trust then immediately sold the company for $1.65 billion. What the Times didn't report is that Barry Side is also the founder and, according to current records, secretary-treasurer of Chamber Opera Chicago, which he created in the early 1980s with his wife, Barbara Landis Side.
Crunching the numbers, live performance is back, but audiences have been slow to return, says the New York Times. Fewer than half as many people saw a Broadway show during the season that recently ended than did so during the last full season before the pandemic. The Met saw its paid attendance fall to 61% of capacity, down from 75% before COVID, and many regional theaters say ticket sales are down significantly too.
In trade news, Theater Bremen has announced that Stefan Kingele will be its new music director and chief conductor. In a statement, the conductor said, "I am looking forward to many scenic and musically touching performances in the next years, to which I invite the wonderful Bremen audience. For me, the theater is the perfect place to share stories, to question, and enjoy life together."
Exit stage right, mezzo-soprano Michelle Walton. Walton was a company principal with Scottish Opera in the late 1990s, appearing in many roles in the repertoire, including Dorabella in Così fan tutte.
And on this day, August 29th, 1720, the first performance of Handel's oratorio Esther. 1868, the birth of French oboist and composer Georges Longy. He played in the Boston Symphony and also established the music school in Cambridge, Mass. 1890, birth of Chilean composer Adolfo Allende Saron. And in 1952, it's the first performance of John Cage's 4 minutes, 33 seconds.
And that is your 2-minute drill.
And that tasty tidbit that you were just treated to was of John Cage's 4 minutes and 33 seconds, a very pivotal, memorable performance from the BBC Symphony Orchestra in 2010.
My favorite thing online is to go to YouTube videos. It's like heavy metal cover of John Cage's 433, and they'll just hit the sticks and then nothing.
Those jokes are too easy, man. All right, let's. We don't have a ton of time. Let's unpack the Super PAC donation and the ties to the Chicago art scene. This is an unusual story, Ashley.
There's a lot to unpack in the story. I'm just going to try to give you the highlights. So there's an article that came out last week with the New York Times, the Lender, and I believe ProPublica. So they are talking about how there was this, at the end of last year, a $1.6 billion, which is the largest political donation to any organization in U.S. history, ever. And it went to this conservative political action committee called Marble Trust. It was actually headed by a guy named Leonard Leo, who is a co-chair of the Federalist Society. Ugh. He's often considered like the architect of Trump's Supreme Court. This guy is a big player. But the way that this happened is basically this guy, this secretive businessman here in Chicago, this guy named Barry Side, donated all of his shares of one of his companies, because he has a few, to this guy. This guy turned around and sold it to another company in, I think, Ireland for $1.6 billion. So that's how it becomes like the biggest contribution in political history. Mm-hmm. So what everybody's reporting on is that he is this secretive Chicago businessman. But of course, when I saw it, I was like, wait a minute. I know that guy. No, literally, I know that guy. I know him. I know his wife. My jaw hit the floor. I hit the fetal position for a minute. Yeah. And the reason I know this guy, I don't have a ton of 1%er friends, so basically this guy founded in the early 80s this company called Chamber Opera Chicago with his wife, Barbara Landis, who is a mezzo-soprano. She often is one of the principals in this company. I'm getting tongue-tied because I'm getting so worked up about this, because everybody's talking about this big money. Nobody's talking about how he is this huge patron of the arts in the Midwest, in the Chicagoland area. His wife was on the board of a number of arts organizations. They founded this opera company that has frankly operated at a loss for a very long time. If you look at the 990s, they have not turned a profit in this company since 2014. Is it a tax shelter? Who can say? They did give this company $1 million in 2019, right before the pandemic started. So they've been known in Chicago. They used to do a production of A Mall and the Night Visitors every year. They've gotten to where they do this Jane Austen musical, and they often take it in tours of the UK. What it means for the Chicago art scene is that I think some people knew about Barry Side's political leanings. He's definitely part of the dust up in the Anton and Scalia Law School renaming, the thing at George Mason. So I think some people knew about this, but the more this story gets out in Chicago, the more people who may not agree with that type of donation, who may also be taking paychecks from his operatic organization, because they employ a lot of singers, or at least used to employ a lot of singers pre-pandemic in the Chicagoland area. So it's a little bit of a sticky wicket, because a lot of artists tend to lean not in the direction that money is going.
Right.
Well, when you look at the Chamber Opera Chicago side of it, just from their website, the next performances of All in the Night Visitors, based on the website, are November 30th, 2019.
Right.
So it's like, I want to imagine kind of the dinner table conversations between Barry and Barbara, and Barbara's like, hey, look, would you be interested in donating to Chamber Opera Chicago, darling?
Well, I mean, their dinner table...
Like, well, you know what? Let me talk to my accountant in the Cayman Islands and see what's possible.
I mean, board meetings for this company are basically their dinner table because they both, she's president, he's technically listed as secretary treasurer, but I mean, the 90s, which you can, I mean, they're public information. You can look up any company and their tax filings by year. So in 2020, which is the last year that's reported, the total expenses for the company are just over $1 million, $1,086,784. Total revenue for the company, they made money in 2020, $945,000. So already, again, they're operating at a loss. The last time they officially turned a profit per the 990s was 2014. So it's, so you're going to hear about this political donation, but know that this guy is an opera fan and he, in fact, runs a company here in the city of Chicago.
And if we can kick him out, that'd be just great with me. This is part of the thing that I was saying like last week, right? The ideological gulf between the wealthy people who fund the opera and the artists who are struggling to make ends meet all the time is so wide. And to like be held, I feel like often any arts organization has come across a point at some point in time where they have felt held hostage by people who are really just want to donate for, I mean, who knows? They might actually be fans, who knows? But like so much of the time, it's for that tax write-off. It's so that they can seem impressive. It's for their social standing. This is the kind of thing that we should be pushing back against, trying to find other ways to fund our arts organizations, lobbying for government funding or just local fundraising or whatever it is. This is the kind of thing we need to get away from. So opera isn't attached to one of the most massive conservative donations of all time,
Counterpoint. This is there are often people, I agree with you, that give these donations so that they look impressive or they look cultured.
Right, sure.
These folks, the sides, legitimately are fans of the art form and legitimately love the art form. When it comes to their politics, I certainly disagree with them. Believe whatever you want, feel however you want about the ways in which this country should be run. But these are folks that are true fans of the art form. So if they're not there to make these paychecks and these donations, who's going to come behind them? I agree, but I'm also a little more realistic and like, well, they pay a lot of artists in this area.
Well, right.
They pay an entire orchestra. They pay singers. Yes, or did. Yeah. And I know a lot of singers in this community that are very loyal to that company because they pay so well. They pay better than most of the other companies around. Why? Because they have these deep pockets from these legitimate opera fans. I recognize that me bringing this counterpoint up looks like I'm more unsupportive than I might be. But, just in looking at the way that shows get put together and shows run, these things cost money. Who's going to bring the money?
It requires a deep systemic change. And honestly, like, from my point of view, if I can ever like make a wealthy conservative far right figure uncomfortable in an art form that I love, that's a good day for me.
The other side of crunching the numbers, of course, was the live performances back, but audiences are slow to return. Met attendance down to 61% of capacity, down from 75% before
Doing
the
better
pandemic.
than Broadway.
Peter Gelb said in the Times quote, "I believe our audience is there. Just some of them are in hibernation." To which I replied, "Why do you think they're asleep, Peter?" What are you putting on the stage of the Met that is keeping them awake? And if you might want to think about
also
about what that is.
You got to get rid of the Zeffirelli Productions is what we're saying.
Really need to. He did absolutely the right things with the Trepco, of course. Strangely, the only show making money on Broadway right now, according to the Times, is the musical version of Beetlejuice.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty good. I saw it. I enjoyed it.
Directed by my dear friend from college, Alex Timbers. So
the
man's a genius. I'm so glad he's making money. Let's wrap up season 7.
Good call. Bad call on Opera Box Score.
Oh my goodness. September to August. What a fantastic year it has been with you two, with Matt Cummings and Oliver Camacho. The OBS keeps on churning out. Dare I say, this show is the only show in America that is on every single week. This is why we are America's talk radio show about opera. No one else, I don't think anyone else in the world does a show every single week about opera. If you are with us, we are glad you are here. We want you to stay here, and we want you to spread the word. Good call, bad call is how we wrap up every show. It's how we're going to wrap up this season. Weston Williams.
Well, I just wanted to agree with everything you said, George, but my good call was actually being off next week for Labor Day. So we don't have to dwell on that, though. You can go to Ashley.
Ashley Hardgrave.
I mean, officially, my good call is working with all of you fine fellas, because you guys are pretty great. And you, our listeners, thank you as always. See you in season 8. But my other good call is the song of the summer, which is It's Corn. Are you familiar with It's Corn?
Oh, yeah. It has the juice.
Oh yes, knobs on. Oh my god, it's so good. So there's a social media account called Recess Therapy where this guy interviews children, and it's always wonderful and it warms your heart. And there is a little boy named Tariq who is interviewed about corn, and he talks about how much he loves corn. And I agree with everything he says. He is my new leader. I will follow Tariq anywhere. And the group, the Gregory Brothers, has written, based on, those sound bites of little Tariq, a song called It's Corn. And it is a straight up bop. The thing is lit. It is the song of the summer. I will die on this hill.
High school football has started in Chicago as of last weekend. I went to my local high school's home opener. I'm standing in line to get my ticket, and I start talking to the man in front of me, who turns out he's a pianist. Oh. But not just a pianist, but a repetiteur, vocal coach, opera accompanist. Turns out his son is playing on the high school football team I'm about to see. He, meanwhile, back in the day, went to music school with Sandra Radvanovsky and Angela Georgiou.
Oh my god!
That's our connection. Sandra next year.
He was like, oh yeah, every time Sandra comes to Chicago, I hang out with her. I was like, would you like to take my cards,
Have you told Matt this yet? Because he's going to lose his mind.
Matt's head is going to explode.
Stick around for season 8. Maybe I'll be the first thing that happens.
You'll be able to hear Matt's head explode live.
For this week's edition and for season 7 of America's Talk radio show about opera, our announcer is Norm Waddell. He's at normwaddell.com, and we are grateful to him. Again, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. If you're not already, Stitcher, Spotify, you click follow. Apple Podcasts, just hit the plus sign. Send us that voice memo. Get your voice heard. Email us. Get your words heard. operaboxscore@gmail.com. You're going to get that merch. Beer coaster, lapel pin. Our creative consultant is Oliver Camacho. Our audio and video editor, well, when we had video, he did video, Weston Williams. Your co-hosts are Ashley Hardgrave and Matt Cummings. For our guests, Ryan Speedo Green and Isabel Leonard, I'm George Cedarquist, asking you to continue the conversation about opera while donating dark money to the boogeyman. We are off next week as we celebrate Labor Day here in the US of A. And then September 15th, home opener, season 8 of the OBS. More opera headlines, more hot takes, and more corn. It has the juice. Join us.